Hi, I'm Dustin LaPorte of LaPorte Wealth Management Group. I want to talk to you about our investment philosophies. These philosophies are based on biblical principles that have been taught for thousands and thousands of years. And whether you believe in the Bible or not, these are timeless principles written by King Solomon, which some people, whether you're Jew or Christian, believe that these are sacred writings inspired by God. So let's dive right into it. To me personally, when it comes to successful investing, you got to have these three things. You got to have direction, diversification, and determination. But let's focus first on direction. The Bible's really clear on that. As far as God-given plans and desires, it comes from committing to the Lord. The Lord right here, you can see it's in Proverbs 16, verse 3, that is capital Lord, which it doesn't actually say the word the Lord in the scripture. Anytime you see that, it's 6,800 times in the Bible, you'll see the Lord in capital Lord. Scratch it out, put the word personal name of God, which is Yahweh. And that's what's original language is in Hebrew. It means commit to the personal God, to this personal God that loves you and wants to walk beside you and speak into your thoughts. It's not an audible voice. Sometimes you're lucky you get an audible voice, but 99.9999% of the time, all throughout the Bible, God communicates to us through our thoughts. The question is, are we listening? Do we recognize which thoughts are from God and which ones are not? Because all thoughts come from two places only. They're either from God or not from God. And knowing the difference makes all the difference. So the first thing that we have to do before we even start investing is know, what is it that God's called me to do? What does he want me to do with this money? For example, we didn't mention it in there, but debt is a negative investment. It goes in the opposite direction. For some people, they come to me, they're wanting to invest. I ask them, do you have any credit card debt? And they say, yes. And here's the interest rate. And I say, pay that credit card off first, because there's no way I can get you a guaranteed 18 or 21% rate of return, because that's what they're charging you. And when you pay it off, that's like getting an 18 to 21% tax-free rate of return. And so, we got to know what the Bible teaches about these different things. And this is not the subject to talk about debt, but we will in the future. But the most important thing is that you got to have a plan, and that plan needs to be established by God speaking into your heart and you committing those plans to the Lord. And when you do that, not only does he establish your plans, but it also says in the next few verses in Proverbs 16, it says he will also establish your steps. And now your heart is going to try to calculate and plan the way, but ultimately, Lord personally will help you establish those steps. And that's part of that process of just spending time with the Lord and also spending time with godly advisors. Proverbs 15:22 says, without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. And that's part of the key. Is now, you don't want to have too many advisors, and you definitely don't want to have advisors that have conflicting worldviews to you. You want someone that has a biblical worldview, because this is someone who's going to be personally advising you, and they may not understand what the Lord's speaking to you if they don't have a relationship with God. So it's important to have someone that you can trust. And the next thing, besides, once you get direction, then you can determine what investments you need to get the diversification. And the first thing that I always advise people to diversify is on the money managers that are managing that money, because victory is won through many advisors. Proverbs 11, Proverbs 24, victory depends on having many advisors. So it's important to have multiple money managers, because you could hire a certified financial planner to help put the plan together, but that planner needs to have a team of investment advisory people that know what they're doing, that all they do is full-time is manage money, because the certified financial planner cannot be watching the stock market and meeting with people at the same time. It's just impossible. Now, one of my favorites is this is just a little sample. I'm not telling you who the money manager is in this example, because I don't want you going saying that, hey, he recommended I go with this fund. I'm not recommending that you go with this fund. I might, if we personally sit down together, but this is just general basic information, is that some funds out there, you have multiple money managers, as you can see right here, but most of these people have over 30 something years of experience managing money. and they're in different locations all around the world. And one of the things I love about this particular investment firm is that they're so large that when they call up a company, unlike if I called up Apple and said, I want to interview all the top executives of Apple, they would just laugh at me. But this firm actually is able to meet with companies and meet with their top executives and meet with their competitors. And because they're such a large investment advisory firm, if this company invests in your stock, then they're usually going to be one of the largest shareholders, which gives some stability to your company if stock prices, if you have a large holder that believes in you and believes in your company. And so this one investment firm did over 21,000 research visits, on-site visits in the year 2022. That's just amazing. And so when they buy companies, they look at the long term, and their bonus is based on how well they do over the long term versus being highly weighted towards the short run. And so I love it because these are diversified, and like the scripture says, with many advisors, plans succeed. Now I have seen it just the other extreme where I had too diversified and too many opinions. One was saying buy, one was saying sell the same stock, and it's like you end up just paying for expensive index. So you don't want to get too over diversified with advisors, but you want to get advisors that you have seen, know what they do, and you believe in them and you trust in their philosophies. So with many advisors, victory is won, and victory depends on having many advisors. So that to me is part of the diversification. And another part of diversification is risk management. Proverbs 22:3 says, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions, but a simpleton goes on blindly and suffers the consequences. Ecclesiastes 11:1 says, invest your money in foreign trade. That is a shock to, I know, some of you out there, because I know, because I've met with you and you're like, I only want to invest in America. America is the best, the greatest ever. There are times we are one of the very best, but there's a whole world out there of different investments outside of the United States. And Ecclesiastes 11:1 says, invest your money in foreign trade. So you don't want to keep it all in the United States. In fact, the next verse says, invest in 7 ventures. Yes, even 8 ventures, because you don't know what disaster may come upon the land. Then he goes on to say, it's because you don't know what you're going to profit from one activity or the other. So you want to diversify, and you got to think of it like farming. And if you wait, and same chapter 11, verse 4, farmers who wait for perfect weather, they never plant. They watch every cloud, but they never harvest. You know that person out there. You've met that person out there where they're always just trying to get it just right, time it just right. And the reality is, none of us are going to get it just right. But there are seasons to plant and there are seasons to harvest. How do I know that? Well, because natural law tells us that. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, for everything, you notice the word everything, there is a season, a time to plant and a time to harvest. And knowing what that season is and knowing when the harvest is what makes a great financial advisor that walks beside you. And I want to show you how, when you plant a plant, and, if it's got a 10-year time until it really starts producing the great fruit and all that, you need to know that. If it's a 5-year time, you need to know that. Here's an example of investment that's been around for close to 90 years now. In fact, it has you can look at 10-year periods of time, and it has never, ever lost money over a 10-year period of time. So it tells me that this harvest on this is got to be 10 years or greater if you want to lower the chances and the probabilities. Now, this is not a guarantee and it's not a recommendation, but this one investment has proven that if you keep it for 10 years or greater, it has never lost money. It doesn't mean that it cannot, but usually it never has. And even if you kept it for 5 years, it only had a 5% probability of losing money. And in 10 years period of time, a 10% of the time it lost money over. And this is looking at calendar years. And on a 1 year period of time, about 19% of the time, if you put money in, 1 year later, you were down. So what happens many times is that people make judgment calls on whether they're winning or losing based on 1 year period of time. I've been with you for 1 year now, and my investment has lost money. 19% of the time that's going to happen where you put the money in and it's going to be down. Does that mean it's a bad investment? No, because it's an investment. It's not gambling. You're investing, not gambling. Gambling has the mentality. Gamblers believe I either win or I lose. So gamblers, they looked at their account 1 year later, they're down. They're thinking, I lost money. And I'm like, did you sell? No. Then you haven't lost anything. See, one of the problems that most people have that they have to deal with this emotion of fear or greed. Proverbs 28, verse 22, greedy people try to get rich quick. Like 1 year later, if I'm not up 20%, I want to get out. They don't realize that with that mentality that they're headed for poverty. That's what it says in Proverbs 28, verse 22. That's a gambler attitude. That's not an investor attitude. Investors, they only lose money unless they sell their investment at a loss. So that means they have a choice on it. So 1 year later, their investment's below what they started with. If they sold, yes, they lost money. If they didn't sell, they didn't lose anything. You only lose unless you sell at a loss. Or if their investment ceases to exist. Like if they bought a bar of gold and they forget where they put it, that's lost. They lost their money. They really literally lost it. Proverbs 28, verse 20 NIV says, a faithful person, as someone who sticks with you, they trust, they believe, they stick it out, they will be richly blessed. But those who are eager to get rich will not go unpunished. And I see that. I've seen it way too many times. People invest. Dustin, I'm not making money. I want to get out. I want to go over here. Everybody else is making money over here. So they go over there. And by that time, it's already overpriced. And then they lose money again. Then now I want to go over there. They're just in a trap of greed and fear. But if they just said, stay put, a faithful person, they're faithful to the money managers and their team. It says they will be richly blessed. Is that guaranteed? Is the scripture saying this is an absolute? No, nothing in life is completely guaranteed. If anything, I think it's Proverbs 11 says, don't trust in riches. Our goal is not trusting in riches. Our goal is to trust in the Lord, trust in God in leading us in every step, every path. So Proverbs 21, verse 5, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Here's another example. Now, once again, this is not a recommendation. This is not guaranteed, but here's an example of an investment compared to a very popular investment. In fact, if I said it, you would know exactly what it is, but I've completely wiped out the names here because I don't want any of you taking my information here and counting it as a recommendation. So completely hidden it from me. But this investment over a 5 year period of time, it's had 259 rolling 5 year periods of time going from 60 months later, from January to 6 months later, February to 6 months later from that, and so on and so on. Never, ever have lost money over a 5 year period of time. Is that guaranteed? No. But statistically speaking, it has never lost money. In fact, it's actually outperformed this very popular investment, but there's seasons where the popular investment outperforms it. And that is why Ecclesiastes 11:2 says, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8, because you don't know what disaster may come upon the land. And so what you do is you can put money in that you absolutely need for the next 4 years, cannot take any risk of losing any money on that. And so it's kind of like having an emergency reserve. You hope you never have to pull from it, but this is in case the market has a downturn. And you remember, you never, ever lose money unless you sell when it's down. And so you put investments that have never lost money over a 5 year period of time, you put those into the 5 and 8 year category. So you want to have 0 to 4 years of living expenses already set aside in a guaranteed account. If you're really, really ultra conservative, you may even want to go up to 7 years, but you want to have money set aside that you know you cannot lose, that you're gonna pull from if the market is down. And then you got some money in the 5 to 8 year category that historically has never lost money over 5 or 8 year period of time. Then you got some money that has never lost money over an 8 to 10 year period of time. And then you got another category of investments that never lost money over 10 year or greater period of time. And so by allocating the monies to these different categories, then each year you have a choice to choose from. Where are you going to pull money from? If one it's got, it went up 40% that year, and it's not usually goes up 40%, that's just extremely unusual situation, then we may want to pull out of those gains and live off of those that year instead of pulling out of the 0 to 4 category. But if everything, all these long-term investments all lose money one year, and remember, they don't lose it unless you sell, but they're down in value. And so to make sure that you're not locking in the loss, then you may sell out of the guaranteed accounts, the accounts that you cannot lose money on, the ones that you have set aside, and they are insured by either FDIC insured or by loans to the federal government, or and possibly even loans to insurance companies, something that has an element of security and safety to it, where you have multiple institutions backing up, or have the federal government backing up the investment. So that's what I recommend as far as a strategy, but I'm not recommending it for yours particularly because I don't know your situation. But this is, I've seen this strategy as a classic strategy called the bucket strategy. And so you allocate investments kind of like you allocate plants. You know, this is a plant that will produce fruit in 10 years from now. Well, then don't be upset and want to chop the tree down if you're 6 years into it and it still hasn't bared any fruit yet. You know, because everything has a season and you got to be willing to wait it out. Here's an example of one popular investment and one fairly unknown investment out there, but it's showing you how if you put investments together, 7 or 8, and you have them primarily non-correlated, meaning that they don't follow the exact patterns. If the stock market goes down, it usually goes down the same. Here's the example of this popular investment in year 2000, 2001, 2002 was down 3 years in a row, versus this other investment was up 3 years in a row. And in 2008, when the market dropped 37%, or this investment did, this other investment was up 5.33. And so in 2022, market was down 18. This was up 7.71. But you can see year to date, when I pulled this off, it was actually down and the market was up. So, we don't know what the market's going to do from year to year. And so by having different monies allocated to different time frames, we'll have different places that we can choose from. It doesn't mean you cannot pull money out of the money you got to allocate it for the 10 years from now to pay for immediate expenses. If it shoots up really, really quick and goes way off the chart, greater than what it usually does, then it may be overpriced. We want to sell out of that, or sell some of it out to allocate to other categories. So love that strategy, love that concept. And because you got it diversified, and because we determined why we own certain investments, and you know it, you feel it, you believe it, and you believe that God is giving you a divine direction on what you're supposed to do that year, then the next thing is determination. Determination is vital, because if you don't stay in it, you cannot win it. Unlike gambling, you roll the dice. If you win, great. You lose, oh well. Investing, you got to stay in to win. Ecclesiastes 7 verses 8 through 9. Finishing is better than starting. Patience is better than pride. Control your temper, for your anger level labels you a fool. I see this all the time. People invest, 1 year later, they're ready to pull out. I'm like, come on now. Come on. This is not what we've signed up for. Remember, 19% of the time, this investment's going to lose money over a 1 year period of time. We agreed upon that. And they lose their patience, and then they get prideful. They think they can outsmart these people that this is all they do full time. They did over 21,000 research visits last year, the year 2022, figuring out the whole investment advisory firm to try to figure out where the best places to invest are. And they think, well, I can do a better job. That's called pride, my friend. You got to have patience when it comes to investing, and you got to control your temper. It's so easily to get upset that you're not making what you want to make. That greed and fear kicks in, and that anger that you builds up inside of you can make you into a fool so easily. Proverbs 3 verses 5-7, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean under your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge the Lord. That's the personal Lord. That's Yahweh. That's his name. And Yahweh will make straight your path. Don't be wise in your own eyes, but fear the Lord and shun evil. Fear the Lord means know your place, respect the Lord, know that the Lord has everything under control. You see the market drop drastically, it doesn't mean that you need to sell out of your investments. Anytime that means you need to hold in there, may not need to pull out as much money as we were wanting to pull out, but it's all about adjusting and staying in there, having the determination. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 4, the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. You got to be diligent. You got to stick in there. You got to stay. You got to be determined. Remember, determination has the word determined. So before you even begin the path, you have determined what the path you're going to walk on so that you can have determination. For example, one of my potential clients asked me, look, I've got $1 million I want to invest. I want to pull out $70,000 a year for the next 30 years. I may live for 30 years. I may only live for 20 years. I don't know, but 30, I don't think I'll live more than 30 years. So, and I want the maximum amount of income now. I feel like the Lord is saying that I need the maximum amount of income now. And as I get older, I know the 70,000 won't be worth as much because of inflation. But I also know I won't be doing as much as I get older. So I want to do as much as I can now, and I'm going to need 70,000 to do that. So we looked at this particular investment. We looked at multiple ones, but this one had 70 years of history. And I wanted to see if we pulled out 70,000 a year. And because it has 70 years of history, I was able to look at 40 periods of time, 40, 30-year periods of time. They call it rolling periods of time. And what was the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario over that 70-year history of pulling $70,000 out yearly for 30 years, the worst case scenario is that 1 million grew to 2 million. It's not bad. That's not bad at all. Now, remember, this is not a guarantee. This is not a recommendation. But if you had invested in that, you would have seen that million go below what you put into it at times. And you could easily have lost faith as you saw the account balance go down, down, down. You're like, this is going to last me for 30 years. Is this going to last me? But because they stuck in there and didn't panic, they were determined. They had determination. They were able to stay the course and were able to get the 70,000 a year and end up eventually, even though it went below the million at one point, it eventually went up to the 2 million. So that, my friend, is the biblical philosophy that we follow. And you got to have determination, diversification, and direction. And it all begins with direction. So Lord bless you. If you got any questions, just give us a call. And once again, this is not a recommendation. This is not any particular investment on this video that I'm saying you need to invest in. It's just clearly for educational purposes, and hope gives you better understanding. And just know this, that, the typical advisor out there just says, what's your emotional risk tolerance? What's the emotional risk tolerance? How, the problem that I have with that is that investing, once you invest, then let it rest. Let it do its thing and let God do the rest. If mathematically this is the best path to go, you're going to have to be patient and you're going to have to let it do its work. If you let emotions control you, then you'll never get to where God's called you to go. So it's so important to have a plan based on reality, based on direction, based on mathematical facts, instead of just investing based on your emotions. I mean, so many times people say to me, I cannot afford to lose anything. But the reality is, it's kind of like Jesus said, if you want to save your life, you got to lose your life. You got to be willing to lose some to be able to gain some. So my encouragement to you is meet with me or meet with someone of my level of experience. It's got multiple designations behind their name, multiple licenses, so that you know that they're coming from a complete background of experience and not one-sided. And make sure that they're a certified kingdom advisor. If you're a Christian, you want to make sure they're advising you from a biblical standpoint. And you want to make sure they're a certified financial planner if you're hiring them for planning, because you want to make sure that they know what they're doing and they're not just a glorified salesperson. So Lord bless you, and look forward to talking to you soon.